Hi, my name is Brad, and this is episode 6 in a YouTube lecture series about intonation in English called Listening for Meaning. In previous episodes, I have mentioned Praat, which is a helpful software platform for analysing and in particular for annotating analysis of speech. In this episode, I provide a very brief basic introduction to the functions of Praat. Although I do not claim to be a speech scientist with any great expertise in Praat at all, I introduce some of the functions that I've found useful for my own needs. I might come back later to do a more detailed episode on using Praat for intonation analysis. This lecture is just to get you started with being able to create Praat files, basic navigation functions, and annotating inside a tier. Praat is a very useful and free software which is available at the link that I have shown here, or you can just search for Praat online. Okay, so once you've found Praat online, you just download the DMG file, drag it to the desktop, open it up, and then drag the Praat icon to the applications folder. That's on a MacBook, and of course you do the equivalent PC commands. Once you have the application, open it up and you will see these two windows shown here in this slide. You can close the Praat picture window, which we won't be needing at the moment. First of all, we need to import a sound file into our Praat objects window. So to do this, we click Open, Read from File, and then you can find either a .wav or a .mp3 file and click Open. So in this slide you can see that I've imported an existing sound file, sound versions 1 and 2, which I created for the Praat images of the two versions of the LAD text that I presented in the previous episodes. If you want to create a WAV file out of any excerpt from my YouTube lectures, you can use, for example, the free software Audacity. You just start recording in the Audacity sound recording software, and then you go and click play on one of my YouTube videos at the point in the lecture you wish to record. And Audacity will record the sound coming out of the computer speakers, which is normally sufficient quality for Praat analysis, so long as there's not any outside noise where you're recording. There are, of course, other ways to get better quality sound recordings that I won't go into here. And to work out how to use Praat for this episode, you can just use an existing WAV or MP3 sound file of speech that you could of your own. So once you have your sound file in your Praat objects window, we need to create a text grid. So we click on the sound file so that it's highlighted as in this image, and then click annotate, and to annotate to text grid. And once we click on that, a text grid will be created for this sound file. But first, when you click on annotate to text grid, you'll get this sound to text grid pop up. This is where you can add tiers to begin with. And here you can see I've got word, tone group, and foot tiers in the all tier names field. Separate the different tier names by a space, but if you want two words to be included as one tier, as for tone group here, you put an underscore between them. So you can start off with certain tiers. You can add tiers later. You can rename tiers later. So it really doesn't matter at this stage. You can do all of that later. I'm starting with these three tiers as the basic tiers. So once you've created a text grid, it appears in your Praat objects alongside or underneath your sound file. if you highlight both of these, then you click View and Edit, and once you've done that, the window shown in this this slide here appears. This is the main Praat analysis window. There's only part of it shown in this image. You'll see the full window in the next slide. So here's the Praat annotation screen that is used for the analysis. You can see the list of menu items along the top of this image. You know, you can click on the tier menu item at the top, and under that you can add a new interval tier, or you can rename a tier that's already there. And as you can see, there are many other functions such as performance and intensity, which is loudness, which allow you to show and manipulate the representation of various parameters. In my experience and for my purposes, I tend not to use these so much, except in occasional contexts. My use of Praat is mainly as an annotation platform where I can produce time-aligned analysis annotations and store these as text grids. So we'll come back to saving files later. Bill Greaves, who was one of the two people who taught me how to use Praat, used to do deep dives into many of these different functions. For example, in his work on bonobo ape discourse, and also colleagues of mine back at the Macquarie Speech and Hearing Sciences, of course, use pretty much all the resources of Praat all the time, including Akiko Kato at Macquarie Uni, who, as I said, along with Bill Greaves, taught me how to use Praat. But these various functions can be helpful. But as I've said previously, I think the best way to analyse intonation is just to use your ears. Although Praat can be helpful in many ways, it can also be misleading in some respects. But first, we need to learn to walk before we can run. So to start off, showing you how to insert a boundary. So you can click into the waveform representation at the top of Praat. Just before, you can see I've inserted just before the beginning of where the speech begins. You can see the waveform beginning there to the left of this window. As soon as you click in to that location, you see there's three little circles on each of the tiers as shown at the bottom left. If you click in any of these circles, this will create a boundary. So I've inserted a boundary in the word tier to the left here by clicking in the circle that was there. The boundary is shown as a blue vertical line. So now I click into the waveform again at the end of the first waveform pattern that you can see at the top there. And you can see I've clicked to the end of that. You can see the red dotted horizontal line. And again, there's two little circles down in the word tier and the tier below it, which you can use to put an end boundary, which creates a unit for this first bit of speech. And note that these boundaries can be moved around later. I'll show you once we have zoomed into this unit that I've created. So in this image you can see the two boundaries that I've created in the word tier. If you click into either of these boundaries, you can add boundaries for the tiers below. You can see I've clicked on the left boundary, which is thus highlighted in red, and there's two circles below it for the foot and the tone group tiers. So I can add boundaries at precisely the same location in these tiers below. Or of course you can add all three at once when you begin, as in the previous slide when I started annotating the boundaries. So in this image, which is a close-up of the bottom left of the previous screen, you can see where I've clicked into between the two boundaries in the word tier, which is shown in yellow. So you can see now that there's the pink region highlighted, which is the region between these two boundaries. So if you look at bottom left, you'll see that there's a variety of icons, all in, out, cell and back. So cell means selection. So if you click on the cell icon, this will zoom in to the highlighted portion, the yellow and the pink region that's highlighted here. So it'll zoom into that portion so that region will fill the screen in the Praat window, as you see in the next slide. So here is the Praat screen after I've clicked into that portion. You can still see the yellow portion is highlighted with the pink below it, but now it fills the screen. And you'll also notice that it's zoomed in to this, but also now you can see the spectrogram has appeared. So the spectrogram only appears within a certain limited time stamp. So if it's beyond a certain amount of seconds, the spectrogram image will disappear. And the idea is, with intonation analysis, normally is to go into certain sections so that you can view the spectrogram as shown in this image here to do your analysis. So if you so in the bottom of the screen here, there's the grey horizontal tiers right at the bottom, and you'll see it says visible part 3.32 seconds. If you click on that visible part grey part, that tier, that will actually play the highlighted part of the sound file. So to navigate or zoom around your file, to zoom in and out, etc., or to zoom to particular selections, as I just done, you can experiment with the icons at the bottom left there. So all zooms out to the whole file. Out zooms out a bit, as is shown in this image. So I've gone from the highlighted image in the previous slide and I've clicked out, and this is what you get, which is zoomed out to a certain extent. In also zooms in to a certain extent in the other direction. Selection is just as I've shown. It will zoom to the selected area. In this case, if I clicked cell, it would take me back to the highlighted area as being the full screen. You can also click and drag across either the spectrogram or the waveform to select any particular region that you want just by clicking and dragging, so that you can highlight a specific area of the file rather than clicking within boundaries or using the zoom in and out function, as I'll show in the next slide. So here I've used click and drag over the spectrogram to highlight a specific time period of my choosing, which is a bit wider than the part within the boundaries that was highlighted previously. And again, you can see the pink highlighting shows the area or the region that I've selected by clicking and dragging from the left to the right across the spectrogram. So after clicking cell selection for the pink highlighted region in the previous slide, you can see that the zoom has now taken me to that selected area in the previous slide, the pink highlighted region, and that now fills the screen here. So these are different ways that you can zoom around, navigate around. You can also click at the bottom of the Praat window, it's not shown here, and move back and forth across the file. There's various other ways you can work out as you go along, but these are the basic functions to allow you to navigate around your file. So once you've created your boundaries within a tier, you can click inside those boundaries and start typing. So I've added boundaries for the tone group tier here in this slide, and I have added the tone group analysis with the textual choices, the salience and tonicity here, not the tone yet. And you can see that the typing that I've put in shows up, and this is aligned with the with the boundaries. It aligns this text, so your annotations are aligned with at the point in the sound file that the annotation relates to. So it's one of the really good things about Praat is a way of storing annotations within the environment in a sense of the source text. You can click on the annotation and hear the sound file that you're annotating annotations are for. So you can see at the top of the Praat window in this screen that those annotations are also shown at the top there. So you can use that to annotate as well, or to redo your annotations. You can also move the boundaries, as I mentioned earlier, to for example, to align them more precisely with the waveform and the spectrogram representations of speech. I've mentioned before that Praat's particularly good at showing the boundaries of units, of intonational units. So you can click and drag on any boundary. So you can see I've highlighted boundary here in red to the left, the tier that I've been working on here, and I can move those boundaries left and right along the timeline. So you can see now that compared to the previous slides, the left-hand boundary is now very close to where the speech representation, the waveform and the spectrogram begins. You can see in the Praat images that I've shown that there's a pitch range shown at the right of the spectrogram. So the range that's been shown in the images so far is 50 Hertz to 800 Hertz. So that's 50 Hertz is okay, but 800 is much higher than certainly my speaking voice. So I can change that range to better suit the speech that I'm listening to. So to change the pitch range, you click into the pitch menu item at the top of the screen. Then you click on pitch settings in brackets filtered autocorrelation, and the pitch settings window will open as is shown in this slide. In this pitch settings window, you can type in your desired pitch range. So I've selected between 50 to 300 Hertz here as suiting the vocal pitch range of my data, this sound file that I created from my own voice. So you can, once you've done that, you click OK at the bottom of the pitch settings window. It's not shown here, but when you've got this window up, you'll see down at the bottom of it, it says OK. You click on that and it will give you that pitch range. So now here you can see that the pitch range is now 50 Hertz to 300 Hertz, and you can see that much better suits the intonation pitch range of this sound file, which has a peak of around 200 Hertz and goes down to around 70 or 80 Hertz. And of course this will vary from different speakers, different spoken texts. And during a text, of course, it can change, higher pitch at certain points, lower pitch at other points. So you can change this pitch range at any time while you're doing an analysis. It's not like you have to set it and leave it there. You can change it for each tone group, essentially, if need be. So it's better just to have give you a good sort of sense of the range of the particular part of the text that you're analysing, and also in particular if you want to do representations, if you want to export images or screenshot images of, for example, certain pitch contours, etc., it's much better to do it with the right pitch range, which shows up those contours much better. And finally, make sure to always save your work. Firstly, to save your sound file, if you've created one in Praat, which you can do rather than importing it. I'll leave that for another day, but it's possible to create, for example, a short sound file from a long sound file. You import a long sound file, then you essentially extract a certain portion of it and create a new shorter sound file. But I won't show that today. But if you need to save your sound file, you click on Save. Then for the sound file option, you will have the option to save as a WAV file as shown in the slide. For your text grid, to save your text grid in your objects, when you click on that, you'll get the Save as a text file option. So save your sound and text grid files together in the same folder. So in my case, I imported my sound file as a WAV file, so I need to make sure that my text grid file goes into the same folder as the sound file, which is just mainly just for keeping things in the same place and making sure that you've got the right sound file for the right text grid associated with that sound file. Okay, you don't need to keep resaving the sound file each time you work, but you do need to save as for your text grid each time you've done some work, so that it can save your annotations or the work that you've done each time in your text grid. You'd only need to save a sound file if you in fact change that sound file as created a new sound file out of your original sound file, which sometimes you do. I might extract a tiny portion and create a new text grid for that, just to illustrate a particular intonation contour or something. So you have to make sure that you save that sound file, as I mentioned earlier. And that's about it for now. It's a very, very basic introduction, but that will allow you to import sound files, create text grids, and be able to start navigating around. And as I mentioned, you can record portions of my lectures, particular texts that I've done analyses for. You can record them on your computer in some way, and then once you've got a WAV or an MP3 file, you can import that into Praat, create a text grid of your own, and start practicing with Praat with some of the texts that I've already presented, or ones that I'll present in future. And as I said, I think I'll probably come back and do a bit more of a deep dive into analysis using Praat sometime later on.